Bleach has attitude. Now, normally when somebody says this, I think the natural assumption would be that that word is followed up by the word problem. You know, like saying somebody has an attitude problem. But in the case of Bleach, this is the farthest thing from being a problem. In fact, I think it's its greatest strength. And before we begin this video, I just want to note that since the anime is currently airing Core 4 of Thousand or Blood War right now, I just want to say there are no spoilers for that in this video. This is completely friendly to anime onlys. There's nothing. There are no spoilers. You're fine. You're safe. And of course, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Thank you. The big three all have things that make them stand out both from each other and against other manga from that era. It was a very competitive time in the magazine, and you had to have some kind of quality to be able to stand out amongst the crazy lineup that was in the magazine at the time. In my early days of manga and anime fandom, I had always struggled to see what other people saw in Bleach, because obviously it was an incredibly beloved series and it was up there with the big three, of course. It was one of the big three, not up there with it, it was in it. And I just could not wrap my head around it when I was younger. But this was all coming from somebody who had really only experienced it through the anime on TV, not even really in order. I would just kind of catch random episodes here and there because I just wasn't as serious about it as I was Naruto and One Piece. With those two, even through the anime, I was able to connect with them immediately. But Bleach was missing something for me. I just couldn't grasp it. But you see, the problem with me experiencing it that way is because exactly that. I watched the anime. The manga is a totally different ballgame. The second I laid eyes on the manga, I immediately filled in the missing puzzle piece to bring me to the point where I got it. I understood Bleach. From the first page, you immediately feel that swag, the confidence, the attitude. Even though it's a pretty well-known thing that Bleach's art style changes drastically over time, even with the early art style, you're still able to feel that Kubo swag on every single page. It just kind of turns into a different brand of swag as the years go by, but it's still got that same attitude built up as the backbone to the entire series from chapter 1 all the way to the end. The anime just doesn't really have that, in my opinion. I think the closest the anime gets to kind of capturing that vibe is maybe the first opening, but even then, something is still missing. It's hard to put my finger on what exactly, but something just isn't there that is very present in the manga. Just for the record though, I think the Thousand Year Blood War anime has been doing a much better job at capturing that attitude I'm talking about. It's still not quite as in your face as the manga, but it's much more there. There's this unique feeling you get when you read this manga where you just feel like this series knows it's better than you. It's like seeing a guy walk down the street who's like totally dripped out. He's got like a Rolex on, designer shoes, designer glasses, you know the drill. And you just kind of think to yourself like, damn. It has a unique quality to it where even whenever it's presenting the most bullshit, nonsense plot point in the history of manga, it still manages to look cool because of that base level of confidence built into the core DNA of this series. Okay, maybe not the Yami reveal, that might be a bad example, but you get the idea. Point being is that if Hell Arc comes around and there's this big dramatic moment where it's revealed that Ichigo has secretly had a sixth toe on his left foot this entire time, it will probably be revered as one of the greatest plot twists in manga history because that's just how good the presentation of this manga is. One of the biggest ways that Bleach is able to set that vibe and attitude is through its cover and color pages. Each one exudes such a distinct personality that all lends itself to the visual identity of Bleach. There's a few different brands of color pages. The first and arguably most effective form of color pages comes in the form of what I will call the drip spreads. These depict the characters in pretty much the greatest fits in manga and anime history. Seriously, like #1, unrivaled. Posing and looking like the coolest people you will ever lay eyes on in your entire life. You will never meet anybody this cool, and you have to accept that. These have existed pretty much since the beginning, and they just keep getting better and better as the series goes on. The second type are what I would call themed illustrations. These usually depict the characters, whatever characters are decided to be featured in any given spread, wearing the same kind of clothes or just literally the same outfit. Typically for like holidays, some kind of celebration, or I guess just kind of vibes. And honestly, these are some of my favorite favorite ones, even over the drippy ones. Perhaps my favorite color illustration in the whole series is actually this vampire-themed one. It's just so rad. I have no clue why they're dressed up like that, but my god, the vibes are immaculate. The bottles in the foreground, the fits, the facial expression, the atmosphere, the big-ass moon in the background. It's all just so perfect, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the series or what was going on in it at the time. No correlation. But it's still unquestionably Bleach. The look in these fine lads' eyes just kind of screams at you. It's like you can hear them saying directly to you, I am better than you and you will never be as cool as this. You're just faced with that reality when you look at this image and you have to accept it. And that is the perfect encapsulation of that attitude that I'm trying to talk about. The third type of spreads are what I'd call battle-ready spreads. These are the ones that are more directly tied to the ongoing story that the chapter is a part of, and usually just kind of depicts the characters in their Soul Reaper uniforms, like me, or in just whatever battle attire they wear. While these are definitely the most simple spreads, they still look fantastic, and the posing is just as great as always. There's definitely some duds in there. These are kind of the ones with the worst track record, I guess, on paper, but they are still awesome for the most part. There's some really standout ones in this category. The fourth and final type are the beach spreads. And well, yeah, you know, what do you want me to say? They're certainly eye-catching. Each one of these illustrations do an impeccable job of giving you that feeling of just like, oh yeah, I'm reading Bleach right now. Which is a wildly important and underappreciated aspect of color pages because you gotta take their original context into perspective. The double page color spreads are always at the beginning of the magazine, usually like after a little bit of ads or whatever. And their job is to bring you into the headspace of both the series and the whole magazine, really, because it's your first impression. At least if you read it from front to back, which I assume most people do, but who knows? It has the important job of setting the tone for the whole magazine and the chapter you're about to read in 2 pages of a color illustration. It's an incredibly important job that I really don't think people take into account much when talking about these things. And Bleach always knocks it out of the park with theirs. They always give you that feeling that you're about to read Bleach, and we are in a prestige manga magazine because of that. We got this shit at the helm, I know we're in for a good time. That's the feeling it exudes, because it knows it's that good. The color pages, not the spreads, important distinction, are arguably even more important because they're placed in either the middle of the magazine or in the tail end of the magazine. They sit amongst a sea of a ton of other series if they're in the middle, and if they're at the end, they stand at the end of a bunch of other series. So you've already worn yourself out probably reading this whole magazine, and you reach this page, and it's got to be like the make or break moment. Do I keep reading or do I stop here? It is of the utmost importance that these illustrations draw in the eyes of readers because that's their job. They gotta stand out amongst a crowd because this is the thing they're trying to prop up this week. Bleach obviously had this a lot because it was incredibly popular. So of course there's a ton of color pages because of that. But that also just goes to show that Shueisha trusted Bleach enough with that heavy task of both leading the magazine and being that eye catcher in the middle or the end. But of course, because they're color, they're gonna draw your eyes in regardless, really. But I mean, it has to be a good illustration on top of that. And despite the advantage of being in color, they still always do their job, and you instantly are transported to the world of Bleach as soon as you lay eyes on these things. This is further exemplified by Bleach doing cover pages, which are just black and white little illustrations before a chapter begins with the title of the chapter depicted on it. Bleach doesn't always do these by any means. They're a little more on the rare side, I guess, or maybe like uncommon, I would say. As usually the chapter title is just featured on whatever the first page is, like a lot of other manga do. But when they do the cover illustrations, they are just as good as the colored ones. They draw your eyes in and they still exude that same attitude. And even whenever it doesn't have a dedicated cover illustration, Bleach generally has extremely strong first pages that will always draw your eye in and do pretty much the same kind of task as a cover illustration would. Never forget God of Thunder 3. If that isn't eye-catching, I don't know what is. One could also argue that shoving an ass right in your face at the start of a chapter is also an example of an attitude. An attitude that I think certainly does match Bleach's typical attitude, just in a bit of a different way. All of these things I've talked about can even be applied all the way back to the first color spread from chapter 1. And I mean, yeah, it is certainly dated, but wait, is that Shinji? It does a perfect job right off the bat of letting you know the vibe it's going for. Even if Ichigo doesn't look quite right through a modern lens, back when it first released, and even back when I first read it, it'll get you on board Kubo's decked out yacht immediately and have you set on your course for peak fiction. I've talked a lot about the color illustrations and unique illustrations that aren't related to the pages of the manga itself, and obviously those are all fantastic, and I'm sure you get the point by now. But at the same time, I'm sure you're wondering, does any of this attitude and vibe I'm talking about extend into the manga itself, or is this just a video about color pages? Every page of this manga is oozing with attitude, and it's all in the style. I could talk endlessly about things like chapter 350, which has another great cover page, by the way. I could talk about how this chapter's simple but effective paneling makes you feel and know exactly what is happening to Ichigo without spelling it out, and the visceral and explosive portrayal of Vasto Lord's attacks makes you immediately understand how powerful this thing is. Despite being a mindless, screaming monster, you're able to know everything you need to know about it in a single chapter with no dialogue coming directly from Ichigo. Or I could talk about the incredible balance of beauty and horror with both Asnot's death and Rukia's first Bankai activation. But instead, I want to prove my point by challenging myself and picking a completely random page of the manga and illustrating how great the presentation of this manga is using only whatever the page is that I pick out. For proof, here's footage of me getting the volume off my shelf and flipping to it. I guess you can choose to believe this was staged if you really want to, but if it was, I probably would have chosen a better page. The page I got was page 4 of chapter 173. This is right at the tail end of the Soul Society arc, where we have Aizen fully revealed, his true colors are fully out in the open, and Renji is standing up to face him. It might look like a pretty unassuming page, but honestly, I think I got kind of lucky here, because this page actually illustrates a lot of what I'm trying to talk about the presentation and attitude of the series. First of all, it's a page that flows really well. It utilizes really simple and common tactics to achieve that, but it's great nonetheless. We start with Renji, both looking at the one he's about to be talking to and looking away from the one he's currently dismissing. And obviously, with it being a continuation of a previous panel, we missed the context, but we're not talking about context. We're talking about this page alone. But if you must know, Rukia did just say something to him, so he's not saying shut up for no reason. Shocker, I know. Renji looking in that direction obviously naturally brings our gaze over to the next panel, which is just a simple panel showcasing the threat in front of him, the target of this rage that we can see building up inside of him in the previous panel. As he spends the next panel rationalizing his anger directly to them, leading us straight down to the culmination of that anger by having him ask why. The thing everyone is wondering right now, including you, the reader. Why the hell is Aizen doing this? What is going on right now? The anger on his face in this moment is incredible, and it's doing the iconic Kubo thing of inking out a large portion of a character's face. At the end of the day, it's just kind of heavily exaggerated shadows and nonsensical lighting, but it just wouldn't be Bleach without an absurd amount of ink usage. Contrast that extreme anger over to Aizen, who looks completely calm, as if nothing in the world could harm him, which is true at this point. From there, we follow his dialogue down to the answer to Renji's question. The final panel being a simple shot of some clouds, which some could call lazy, but I think the point here is to let you sit with the words that are being said. Neither Aizen or Renji's face matter at all in this moment. You as the reader need to sit there and soak in what he's saying, because it gives you every answer you could possibly need right there in that one panel. Plain and simple, Aizen is an incredibly twisted individual that never cared about any of this to begin with. All of the prior events of this arc are completely meaningless to him. They are beneath him. They're just simply a means to an end. No emotional connection, nothing to do with any of this. He does not care. He's cold and wicked. And that's what we're seeing right here. While we obviously don't know the intricate details of his master plan at this point in the story, we're able to learn so much just from this one panel. Calling Momo's death unavoidable shows to us that Momo's affection to him might not have been planned. It was a mistake in his flawless plan that needed to be corrected. Killing her, his most loyal subordinate, one that he himself has shown affection to in this very arc, is just killed without a care in the world, or at least seemingly killed. The fact that Renji is the one to ask this question makes it all the better, Since we spent a large portion of this arc learning about Renji and how he wasn't what he seemed to be when we were first introduced to him. He has a heart and he deeply cares about other people, especially the person he's holding in his arms right now. The very person whose fate had us questioning Renji's morals when we first met him. These two characters went on inverse journeys right before our eyes, and now both of their character arcs' climaxes come to a head right here in this moment. None of this could have been accomplished without the very thing that's built into the backbone of this entire manga, the attitude. Even if everything I just spat out about paralleling narratives and character arc fulfillments was all nonsense and completely unintended by Kubo, we can still believe that it was planned and absolutely brilliant because the work itself knows how good it is. It's a manga whose attitude is so tangible that it feels sentient and alive. One that doesn't bother to look over its shoulder to make sure we're still on board because it knows we are. If you can't keep up, that's on you. It's gonna keep driving this ship and it does not care if you fall off deck. This manga does not give one single shit about you, and it's all the better for that. The attitude of this series is what makes it distinctly Bleach, and it would not be the same manga without that attitude. Thank you for listening to the rambles of a madman. I put a lot of work into this video. It's a topic I'm very passionate about, and it's kind of a thought process I've been building up over the last, I don't know, like 10 years or so, or however long I've been a Bleach fan. Probably more than that. I don't really know. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know your thoughts on my ramblings. Let me know any examples that you'd like to point out to further drive this point home. Anything you want to tell me about, I'm all ears. And remember, you can also become a channel member at 3 tiers. You can click the join button to see what tier works best for you. You get things like early access to new videos, exclusive monthly videos, your name in the credits, emotes, and if you join at the highest tier, you'll get your name read out loud right now. So thank you to DJ Tengen, Milu Kitty, Braden Farrell, Halfpipe, Rafker, The Cosmer 64, Cosmic, Key to the Skies, Iliadis, Noobs Rock, Dan, The World's Worst, Menacing Pigeon, Papa Aeon, Gaming Anime Addict, BNE, and Rocket Bacon. And A the Seller. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in whatever you decide to watch next. Take it easy, guys.